drop your resume into a black hole and maybe you'll hear back from an automated computer 6 months down the line, right? We can be so much better than that. What a wealth of non-traditional students, right? And we really want to capture that because I think it says a lot. And I'm a non-traditional student. I had a non-traditional path. Really, what I'm excited about is connecting people with opportunities, right, and resources. That's why I got into the industry.
Today I have Jonathan with us, who is all about connecting people, empowering growth, and unleashing the potential of data for a better tomorrow. Jonathan is working with a company that is growing and it's hiring. Let's welcome Jonathan on 10 Minutes of Hiring Wisdom, where he will tell us about what it's like looking for the best talent, why is data very important in taking decisions, and if he has any advice for job seekers out there today. Hi, Jonathan. How are you doing today?
Hey, Manal, I can't complain. Getting through another Monday, so glad to be here. How about you?
I'm doing well, Jonathan. So you told me I can't complain about Monday. So what does your usual Monday entail?
Oh, wow. So they're all a little bit different, right? I think Mondays and Fridays are big meeting days, right? Half of which could be an email, of course. So really just a lot of reoccurring meetings fall on Monday because it was blank and they got in that spot and then they didn't go anywhere, right? So if I'm lucky, one will fall off and get replaced, just organically. So just a lot of meetings. And then planning out the week, right? Getting an idea, okay, what are the priorities this week? What's the status of, you know, project A, B, and C, right? And seeing what we need to do to jump in. But, if I'm
Okay.
being honest, I think Tuesday through Thursday, probably most productive days for me, right?
That sounds interesting. I think mine's usually Wednesdays when I'm most productive because I'm like, I'm halfway through the week. The week's
Sure.
almost there. The weekend's almost there. So I
Mhm.
want to get everything done as soon as I can. So
Yep.
I think I would say Wednesday is definitely one of my favorite days. But thank you for sharing that, Jonathan. Jonathan, my next question for you would be is it's a follow-up question regarding what you said, which is you prioritize. So I think a lot of people these days, because they're juggling with so many responsibilities when it comes to a
Mhm.
certain role, how does one ensure to prioritize different tasks in a way that would be most optimized?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, Manal, and I think that it looks a little bit different for each person. But I'll approach it from the side, right? I am not the biggest fan of having multitasking, right? I know that sounds crazy to say, because that's the one transferable skill we pick up on any job, right? If you're in food service, well, I can take multitasking to my next job. But really, giving what to give your full attention to, right? And if you're doing two or more things, you're splitting that focus, right? So prioritizing for me is taking that time to reflect and say, okay, what is there something we can pick up as a quick win that we can just go ahead and do? I use a lot of matrices for this, right? We want to evaluate what has high and low cost, high and low impact, and then pick up those low cost, high impact things quickly, right? And then snowball from there. So, I think the system is what's important, and just that system of looking at everything and being intentional when planning out the week would be how we get that done.
Okay, no, I think that makes sense. There's a book by an author called Deep Work, which is essentially about how the brain is not very functional and at an
Mhm.
optimized pace when you're actually multitasking. And I think looking for quick wins, if you want immediate gratification, and then
Mhm.
pacing it out based on priority of what can be done quickly, what you need to
Sure.
be done based on urgency, is something that's very important. So thank you for sharing that, Jonathan. Jonathan, you've been in the talent acquisition space for quite a while. You've deployed successful staffing strategies when it comes to hiring the best talent. Can you tell us some of the staffing strategies that you've deployed over your career that had big success?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that, and I love how we jumped in. So just to give you a quick Twitter bio, right? So I'm a HR manager for talent with Sonoco, which is a global packaging company. So we partner with our customers to create and design, right? We take that full cycle of it, packaging for whatever they need, right? Food, pharmaceuticals, industrial products, we get that done. Before here, I was with PRA Group, which focuses on financial services. They are a publicly traded debt buyer. So, a little bit of a different ballpark, but really what I'm excited about is connecting people with opportunities, right, and resources. That's why I got into the industry, and it's something that's really close to my heart. So, um, regardless of what environment that looks like from a worksite standpoint, I think there are a lot of processes that come the same. Really, the first thing I do when I'm going to a new plant or a new or call center or whatever the case may be, wherever we're supporting is what do our talent structures and pipelines look like currently, right? So you mentioned, I think, when we were talking earlier, why the data is important. Well, you got to know what's going on before you know in what direction to go. If everything's good, great. Okay. We can move straight to looking for improvements or opportunities to improve. But if we all kind of agree, yeah, something needs to change, right? First, we got to know what's going on. And that starts by looking at a lot of data. So, what's your turnover rates, right? Depending on the scale of what you're doing, I mean, is it, are we looking by division? Are we looking by, quarters? Are we just going back? Are we doing monthly evaluations? So, getting the data there, I want to know what our time to fill is. I want to know, how many openings we have, as much history as I can, right? There are people when you go in and you're revamping a process or you're starting a process where there is none or tweaking an existing one, maybe in an acquisition, there are people there that have been doing it, right? The building has stayed up, people have started, onboarding has happened. So I want to talk to those people and I want to know their experiences, find their pain points. And this might be too granular. So just tell me if I need to zoom out, and I'll speed up too because I know that we've
No, no,
ultimately.
I think I like the direction you're going into, and the more details you can give, I think more people can learn. So go for it.
Cool. Okay, absolutely. So we connect with that like expert, right, at the plant, your administrator, HR coordinator, whatever the case may be, right? Sometimes everything, their safety officer and X, Y, and Z, and it's like, wow, okay. And from there, like making life easier, right? As far up and down as we can. So standardizing processes. Maybe we move all the initial resume screens to one person, all the phone screens to that person, right? And then the on-site person is just signing someone in, and letting the hiring manager know they're there. So right away we create like time freedom on their end that is going to funnel right back into those other hats that they wear. Be that safety, great. The more resources safety gets, the better. Or employee retention, right? Then you're doing yourselves two favors. You're making your on-site coordinator's life easier. You're giving the plant some value back, and you're keeping people longer, which means less work down the line, right, at that particular plant. So we free ourselves up to focus elsewhere. So I think that's the initial structure, right? And then from there, it's like, okay, in these past few years, we've seen how tight the talent pools can get, right? Or how dry they can get, right? So we are definitely living. I mean, we just saw record unemployment for decades and decades and decades. Like I think last month or the month before. So how do we continue to position ourselves? One to continue hiring 5,000 people a year, right, or more as needed. But then two to be in a good competitive position for the future, because folks, if you don't have your roots in those talent pools now, get them in before they get full. Because what we're looking at next is just very small niche groups of individuals, or folks with that our traditional methods of recruitment or talent marketing haven't reached, right? So we just have to get better at focusing on those spaces, right? And that means making our job descriptions more accessible. That means being more intentional about our college career fair circuits, right? That we hit for interns or early career programs. So I think that we definitely want to start. We want to get the picture, get the data to answer your question, and then we want to look for small changes we can make that generate value as much as possible. And then as we get out, several months, we're partnering with employment offices, right? We want to get on the state's job boards. We want to have those people advocating for us if people need career training, but do they need career training or do they just need a job with their current skill set that can get them working now? We've got a variety of positions that a lot of people can just step into, just the nature of it. So Yeah, partnering with employment offices, partnering with universities, right? I want your graduates, I want your dean list, I want to know when. I want to know when everyone's graduating, right? So we can set that up. If we've got, if we've got a population, when I think about like DeVry, right? We just talked to them a while back. So they're serving a lot of non-traditional students, folks who maybe they've got 3 to 6, 7 years of experience, and now they're going back to complete that associate's, bachelor's, master's technical program, whatever the case is. So, what a wealth of non traditional students, right? And we really want to capture that because I think it says a lot. And I'm a non traditional student, I had a non traditional path, and it was I think that you learn a lot being in the workforce, you learn a lot in school, and if we can get folks who, are taking an active step to take that next role and they've got both, whew, okay, sounds like a slam dunk for me. But I'll pause there. I want to make sure I answered, your question, and then we can pivot wherever we need to or
I
have it.
think that was the most thoughtful process that I've heard. I've spoken with over 1,500 people, Jonathan, and I think a lot of companies don't realize that they have so much data internally that they could
Mhm.
learn from and
Right.
that could use to make a change within their company,
Mhm.
that they just go on and make similar mistakes. For example, we saw a lot of companies went on a hiring spree where they kept on hiring people and then they realized, oh, it wasn't a
Right.
smart decision. And then they essentially laid off so many people.
Right.
But when it comes to leaders like you who understand that, oh, they can do so much internally, work on the processes inside, work on making sure the process is efficient. So not only are you sharing, saving time internally, but you're also saving time on candidates who are already stressed out, looking for
Right.
jobs in a market that's very tough. So it's very inspiring to see that leaders like you exist who are in it to make the lives of not only their employees easier, but also the people who they've not yet employed. And you guys actually show the reflection of the company, what the company stands for, what the culture is, because the interview process, the way the company operates, actually
Mhm.
does show the reflection of what their candidates are getting themselves into. So thank you so much for sharing that. I think I really love the process that you take, which is ensuring that the data that you use can be used in a way that can make it that can be made used to make a difference.
Mhm.
So thank you so much for sharing that, Jonathan. Jonathan, you did mention something interesting, which is your non-traditional background. I'd love to understand how your background was very non-traditional, because at first there was a certain expectation: you need to go to high school, you need to go to a good university, and then you can graduate and then you can work. So how
Right.
can people who come from non-traditional backgrounds stand out in a way that they could be like, okay, this is what I do, I did not go to
Mhm.
school, maybe I didn't do this, but I still bring a lot of skills and experience to this table?
Yep. Absolutely. So I think that being able to showcase yourself, right, and your skill set in a way that makes sense to your audience. So that sounds like a really nebulous sentence. So let's look at each individual part of it, right? If I have worked at a fast food chain, right, quick service restaurant, Taco Bell, Chick-fil-A, whatever, McDonald's, whatever the case has been. Okay, well, I've learned a lot of things, right? I've learned time management. I've got experience working on my feet, working in adverse conditions like with heat, grease, etc. Safely managing food, right? Resolving customer incidents, de-escalating with customers too, and then also meeting hard metrics like drive-through times, right? So I think that it's about thinking about what have you done, right, and then make that accessible to people. Businesses, companies, they all have ATSs. They want you to enter information 14 different times, right? Drop your resume into a black hole, and maybe you'll hear back from an automated computer 6 months down the line, right? Well, we can be so much better than that. One, as an industry, as a country, as just a group of people. But I think that we've got to put our best foot forward with folks. So, if you're applying for a job and, you're listing out what you have done, and it's exactly, apples to apples, right? You wash dishes, right? Well, okay, cool. But, there's more that goes into running a room, right? There's setup, breakdown, there's organizational skills, there's time management. What about times when things didn't go according to plan? Did the dishwasher break? What if you run out of hot water? How do you support people when you have no dishes, right? So if you start thinking about it and breaking down the work that you've done, you start to realize that we are just so impressive people in our abilities and resilience and ability to pick up, to adapt, to learn new things, right? So really, I think the challenge and what I would focus on coming from a non-traditional background is how do I take this and show it to a company on a page, right? And maybe that means it's a LinkedIn message, right, to a hiring manager. Maybe that means that maybe it means I get some help with my resume, right? I know we've been saying we're gonna so it's such and such or replace the resume, for years and years, but it hasn't gone anywhere. So maybe if we're not confident with ours, or if we just have like our Indeed resume that Indeed created for us, or a ZipRecruiter template that they put our information in, those are not super flattering. We can find a template, we can do it. And I'll tell you, we've got some resources that we're working on to get on our website to help folks with that. You can get me on LinkedIn. I will help you, right? I've done it to people I know personally and people I've never met before. But ultimately, a rising tide lifts all boats, I think. So, we always want to be on the lookout for opportunities to help each other. So, anyway, that's my personal plug at the end of what I hope answered your question.
I think, Jonathan, just to say thank you for from all the people that you've helped out along the way. I think you're giving hard, especially helping people out and knowing that not everyone's the same. Everyone comes from different backgrounds.
Sure.
Everyone comes from different upbringings. It's just important to realize what people can bring to the table, whether they're capable of actually putting in the hard work, which is the important part. If people are willing to put in the hard work, they can do anything at the end of the day if you set your heart something to it.
Mhm.
And thank you for sharing your experiences. Our time is up, but Jonathan, it was a pleasure learning from you.
Thank
Your experiences, what you've learned along the way, especially your wanting and needing to help other people, especially when everyone's so busy and time is money these days. It's people like you who really do make a difference in people's lives who are already stressed, struggling to find the right job. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Yes, thank you. And kind words, but please, I'm happy to help. It's not easy, but it has gotten better, right? So I definitely think it's progress, not perfection. But I'm glad to be a part of it, and thank you, Manal. Enjoyed it.